Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's submarine down below 93K, and it might be because Trump now supports a bill that could hit China and India with 500% Russian-related tariffs, which is one way to start a global argument without leaving your golf cart. Aviation experts say the post-shutdown mess could ruin holiday travel, so great news if you've ever wanted to live inside an airport Chili's for 48 hours. And Michael Saylor bought another $835 million in Bitcoin, proving that he reacts to dips the same way your grandma reacts to coupons at Kohl's. All that and more on today's show. Let's go! All right, boys and girls, welcome. It is Monday, and welcome back to another episode here at the Blockchain Report. We got a bit of a late start this morning because, computers, man. You know what I mean. But we're here now. We're ready to get to today's top news. But first, joining us is we're still waiting on our special guest of the day. We're having some challenge put up. All right, so while we're waiting for Stephen, we've got a lot on the docket today. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Epstein Files. Donald Trump now says to show them. Something here is feeling a little off to me, but we'll get into that in just a bit. And now we have our first special guest of the day. You know him, I know him, and we all love him. We're talking about our main man, Mr. Stephen Big Beat Orr is joining us for our market check today, guys. So let's roll the stinger and bring him on in. Oh, there he is. We already got him. Stephen, how are you? Happy Monday. Okay, we are having some major technical issues here this morning, guys. Again, it is a Monday, and again, computers. And Stephen, can you hear me now?
Yeah, man. How are you, Hank? I feel like gremlins are everywhere, man. I love this. What a beautiful day. Listen, manipulation day is happening again, all right? We understand that. I get it. Look, selling is imperative, and one of the things I even said on my own show this morning was that cash is needed for a lot of things lately. In real estate, you've got home taxes, so people are buying, they're just trying to take some profit here. And we're seeing some selling around the world. Okay, they're scaring the heck out of people. Great. Guess what I love? Right. Scared money. Scared money makes me money, and that's what makes me happy. So all morning long I have been buying. Look, every time I get down to that 92,000, I'm happy as heck. I'm buying, right? Let it happen. Let this thing run. Let it do its thing. And while we accumulate, while we stack sats, this is why we are who we are. This is why Saylor laughs in their face when they're selling and says, good, thanks for the free cheap crypto, right? The free cheap Bitcoin. And as we do this, look, there's going to be a rotation. I understand the rotation, but a lot of the retail doesn't understand this situation of what we're living in right now, which is a worldwide movement to crypto and digital assets. And as we do that, there's going to be a rotation. And I'm glad that some of these whales are selling, because that allows more Bitcoin into the market, into the exchanges, so people can accumulate that, right? As the price goes up, people aren't going to want to buy it because they think it's too expensive, but they're going to be chasing it down the road. And I don't like chasing. I hate chasing anything. I don't even chase cars anymore. I gave that up too as well. Look, it's very simple. If you're in this market and you really want to own Bitcoin, what are you waiting for? You waiting for 50,000? It ain't going to happen. You waiting for 85,000? It might happen. It might not. And they may say, okay, you know what? Capitulation happens today. I'm out. I'm going to go up. That's it. And as these people, there's some people trying to take advantage of it by 100xing and 300xing the shorts on it. Great. Guess what's going to happen to them? Like it happens every single time. They get burnt. So right now, I'm just accumulating. I'm loving this. I'm enjoying the accumulation. And I probably buy all the way down to about 85,000. If they're going to go down below that, I'll definitely be backing up the truck at that point. But right now, I'm just accumulating, as always.
Yeah, it certainly seems like those who are in the know are taking this as a buying opportunity, as we'll talk about in just a bit. Michael Saylor just opened Strategy's wallet again for their biggest Bitcoin buy in some time. So it certainly seems like a lot of the not newer hands in the space, but TradFi is really starting to reach into the pockets of a lot of these OG holders and kind of taking it off their hands for them. But I wonder if, aside from the exchanging of hands that we're seeing, Stephen, obviously, last week we heard from Jay Powell. He was a little hawkish on the December rate cuts. People were expecting a second one. Now it's not so certain. Do you feel like Bitcoin's volatility we're seeing right now is in any way tied to the Fed losing its predictability halo when it comes to future rate cuts?
As my friend JC Perez says all the time, I don't even know what they're gonna. I don't even know what I'm gonna have for breakfast. How am I gonna know what the Fed's gonna do? Listen, to be honest with you, the Fed's gonna cut rates in December. Anybody who says they're not cutting rates is silly. Look, it's very simple. The Fed said that they have two things that they have to look for, right? One is the labor market, and the other one is 2% inflation. And we're already getting to that number. We're to what, 2.2 now, 2.4, depending on the number you're using. Whether you're using the U6 number for unemployment or using the regular numbers, there aren't any numbers to actually see it. But we know that the Labor Department is concerned about unemployment. You're hearing from a lot of talking heads, a lot of businesses, and including Scott Bessent, and now two more U.S. senators saying, and John Warner just said a few minutes ago, hey, guess what? AI might take out 20 to 30% of college graduates. We won't even need them because AI is going to replace them. Oh, okay, I get it. So unemployment's a problem. Yeah. And guess what? When you do that, you lower rates. So all of the things the Fed says they need to see, it's there. So if the Fed does move the goalpost again, that's on the Fed. And it will then pretend to the president to say, okay, you know what? For all of you did not lower rates, I'm going to replace you. He already knows that. We already know that Powell's going to be replaced. And for those who doesn't replace, he pretty much break the law, right? So we got one person who's already broke the law and another one's already done it again. So look, the Fed is pretty much irrelevant at this point to me. They are going to lower rates. What the Fed says, what the Fed does, it's only a couple things, right? If you want to look at the disco rate, that's fine. That's the discount rate between what the Fed does and what the banks are. That's the spread. It's not widening. You want to look at the bond market if you want to get deeper into it. I can go as deep as you want. The bond market is telling you right now they're raising rates 4.131%. So they're going to have to lower rates. Lumber prices are at the low of like, I don't even know, 10 years, something crazy now. Lumber is housing. Wow. Lumber, housing, unemployment rates. All of it kind of comes together. So all of these things tell me that we're going to lower rates. Housing is an issue. We know that younger people that want a home, they can't afford it. So you got to lower rates to make it affordable. People that are in the homes don't want to leave homes because they have a very low rate. Low rate. There it is. There's your answer. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. You know what? 92.4 right now on Bitcoin. Looking over now. I'm not scared. I love this. Buy. Don't stop buying. Accumulate. Don't take all your pot of money that you got to accumulate. Break it into sections and chunks. Just do what everybody else does. Saylor's doing. Even Saylor's not buying all big chunks. He's breaking it up too as well. So do the same thing. But the manipulation is kind of high. I'm also seeing it in the Binance side. I get it. The perps are also slowly selling too as well. It is manipulated. I'm not scared of all of this. The future is digital assets. So make sure that you're definitely in it too as well.
Yeah, I mean, the writing is on the walls. We're seeing it just last week. I'm not sure what it is right now today, but the fear and greed index was something around like 15, even though at the time the Bitcoin price was still hovering around 100K, which kind of just shows you the unique space that we're at right now. But for a lot of the newbies that are entering the arena, Stephen, they're looking for a North Star. They're not sure what's going on. They thought rates would be for sure cut again. We're not so certain about that. We thought we'd see 150K Bitcoin by the end of the year. A lot of questions in the air. You on the show have come. You've been before. Yeah, there still are. And you on the show before have said that you should follow the flows. So for the average person who's watching today, Stephen, which flows or metrics actually matter between now and the end of the year? And which ones are just noise? What should our viewers be looking out for right now to get an idea of where the market's going to be headed?
That's an amazingly good question. The flow that I'm looking at now is how much are the whales sitting to the exchanges, and they're sitting quite a bit to the exchanges, and that's okay. Look, we understand that these OGs, and including my own self, in order for more people to adopt, they have to be able to afford it, and they have to have more out there to be able to acquire it, right? So the people who say, well, I missed the run, what do I do, Big B? What do I do, Hank? Well, look, it's very simple. Accumulate in small chunks. So if the price goes down, great. If the price goes up, great, because you haven't put everything in. You're not fully in. One of my biggest rules is always have powder, meaning that if the market goes against you, great, have more to dollar cost average to buy more. They're taking advantage of this. Look, the 100Xs and 300X people, they're going to get burnt like they always do. They always get burnt almost every time. It's like sticking your hand on a hot stove. They can't help themselves, right? It's like a little baby. Okay, I got burnt again. I'm going to try it again. You get burnt again. But when you look at the gambling aspect of crypto, take yourself out of that. Don't worry about what they're doing. Don't worry about what the markets are telling you, what they think you're seeing, or what you're seeing in the charts. I'm going to tell you, 80% of the people that are in charting itself don't really understand charting. I mean, the CMT Association, the people who invented charting and make it charting, they're the ones that are the brilliant ones about charting. Most people don't even understand. Most people only have 2 or 3 technical analysis on their charts. Is that what the masters of charting are putting on there? I have 47 analyses on my charts. And most people can't even understand. I'm happy to teach charting. But when I look at charting, I'm not looking at moving averages, just moving averages. I'm not looking at EMA. I'm looking at all kinds of things on the charts. I'm looking at flow of volume. I'm looking at flow of when I look at the money coming into the exchanges, what is that flow? Is the flow heavy? Is it slow? Is it slowing down and up? Remember one thing. The markets don't care about you as a person. It is literally a mechanical machine. It's going, okay, there's a buyer and a seller. So when the markets are going down, the market's going up, there is a buyer and there is a seller for every single time. There's somebody out there buying. It's whether or not they're lowering the price, the buyers, of where they want to buy. Where is that liquidity zone ending? And I think we're into it now. And I was asked the other day, how do you know about capitulation? When does capitulation happen? It is something that you have to learn and understand over time of doing it. But capitulation is happening right now. Every time we drop, it goes right back up. Every time we see 92.4, they're trying to push to 85. I understand that. We're not going to get to 85. All right, listen right now. We're not going to 85. For those of you, even the whales, listen to me. We're not going to 85 because there's a lot of us out there that'll be buying up your shorts and taking you to cleaners. So I'm going to tell you right now, Michael Saylor's laughing at you at 85. He's loving you at 85, right? Tom Lee told you today, I'm loving you. So why try to push that? So remember one thing, if you are an investor out there, remember one thing. It doesn't matter what it is that you're investing in. It's always about one thing and one thing. What is the path of least resistance? So when Bitcoin was at 126 on this show, I told you the path of least resistance is not to the upside. It's to the downside. It's probably easier to start selling some of that, take some profit off, and enjoy some of that. Well, okay. You've run that thing down. So from 126 down to 92 here, that's where you're at. So now you've had a nice pullback, about 30%. There it is, right? Now the path of least resistance is not to the downside. That's the hardest place to go because now where are you going to go? Even if you go to 85, it's only 7,000. 7,000 plus 92 takes you back to only 99. So the path of least resistance is to the upside. So that's why I'm saying I like this area. I'm buying as much as I possibly can. I am accumulating as fast as I can here, but I'm not putting it all in at one time. I'm letting this manipulation happen. So I'm not scared of what's happening right now. And if you're scared, as Warren Buffett says, you probably shouldn't be in the market in the first place. So this is where I like this. I love this. If you are an investor and you believe in Bitcoin, buy. That's it.
Yeah, and as people are looking to make those types of decisions, as you mentioned just a minute ago, the charts don't tell the whole story, right? We need to understand all the different factors that play in the world to really get a good picture as to what's going on right now. You have your amazing platform, Quasar Markets, that takes data using AI, tons of different kinds of AI from all over the world to help give people a true picture of what's going on right now. So based on that, what are some of the things that you'd be looking at if you were using Quasar today to get a good idea of what is moving the market currently? What would you do for something like that, Big B?
Yeah, there's a lot of macro that I'm very interested in that most people aren't paying attention to. The first one is probably a deal with India. That's an issue right now. Russian sanctions. Now we see that in Congress right now that there's looking to it's literally a bipartisan. Can you believe it? Congress is actually being bipartisan about something. Yeah. But Russia sanctions. So if that happens, Russia has to use other places. They'll be using crypto. If you're looking at North Korea with their hacking, okay, great. If you're looking at Japan, they're talking about cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of macro things that I am very interested in. The very one macro issue that I am interested in is when the teams at Binance are starting to slow down their selling. And not Binance, not the company itself, but the people that are on the Binance platform. There's a lot of selling going on over there. So, okay, great. And so a lot of the OGs are still on Binance. I love Binance, by the way, if you don't know that. I'm a huge fan of Binance. But they got to stop selling too as well. So that's a macro issue. And I'd also say, if I'm looking at the Binance side of things, on the Asia side, it's Japan. I want to see what their guardrails are, calling it guardrails, what their issue is with crypto. They want crypto. They want digital assets. So let me find out what they're looking at and what they're doing, and what the FIS, which is their SEC over there, what their rulings are going to be. Then I love it, right? Their new prime minister over there, she is all about the new economy. So, that's a whole world that we haven't really explored yet in crypto, and I'll be over there soon, about what they're thinking about in crypto. So, look, to be honest with you, we are, I would say, arrogant as Americans to say, hey, we're all about the crypto world. We're not the ones all controlling the narrative here. This is a worldwide product. So I think we need to think more on a macro aspect instead of just on what our U.S. Fed is thinking. I don't care what the U.S. Fed is thinking. I care about what all the Federal Reserves are thinking. I care about what all of the banking industry is thinking. Are they also going to be participating in the crypto space? And the answer is yes. Digital banking is growing at the fastest clip in history. So they're going to view something. And you hear from a lot of these banks going, hey, you know what? Stable coins. Well, okay, that's great, but they're not ready. What stable coin are we going to use? They're not ready. So we're back to the old original Bitcoin. And guess what? It's the gold standard, and I'm going to be buying the gold standard.
Absolutely. And I want to talk some more about those events we're seeing today, and we can discuss how those are affecting the price action we're seeing currently. So right now, we're going to get into our bull run big beat. I'm going to read the story. You and I are going to come back and jam about it. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Let's do it. Let's roll the stinger, guys, and let's get to our first story. Let's do it. All right, so first up, President Trump is now apparently cool with tariffs up to 500% on countries doing business with Russia, which is one way to say we're serious without actually using those words. Over the weekend, he said Republicans are putting in very tough legislation on any country doing business with Russia. Democrats and a chunk of Republicans have been pushing for tougher legislation to punish Russia over its ongoing war in Ukraine, which is nearing the 4-year mark with no clear end in sight. Now, up to now, Trump had been reluctant to back this kind of hard sanctions bill because he has been trying to position himself as the guy who can get Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelensky to the table for peace talks. Now, on the ground, Ukraine has been striking Russian oil infrastructure, including refineries and Black Sea energy targets, in an effort to squeeze Moscow's ability to fund the war. Russia, in turn, has ramped up airstrikes on Ukrainian territory and is pushing to capture the key rail hub of Pokrovsk. I'm not even going to try with that name, keeping the pressure on logistics and civilians at the same time. Now, if the Republican bill moves and the White House leans into those tariff powers, it does not only hit Russia, it puts countries like China and India in the uncomfortable position of choosing between cheap Russian energy and access to the U.S. market. And as usual with sanctions, the big question is whether this becomes real economic leverage or yet another round of geopolitical chicken where everyone swears they are serious while the war continues to roll on. We're bringing Big Beat back. Stephen, when a U.S. president publicly floats 500% tariffs on countries buying Russian energy, specifically China and India, that's not subtle. How does a threat like this actually ripple through global liquidity and commodities markets? What do you think?
I have said this, I don't know, since I took my first course in economics. Look, tariffs have never, will never, and continually never work. So why are we on tariffs? Tariffs do not freaking work. And when you sanction a country, Again, it's arrogance thinking that when we sanction anything, that they can't find a workaround. I mean, it's like trying to herd cats. It isn't going to happen. Russia uses other countries like Saudi Arabia to get around those sanctions. So I don't really understand the whole process here about sanctions, oil. Now, if you want to talk about sanctions in the aspect of energy, and I think you made a very good point here about energy. If you look at the new European numbers, there's a problem here with nat gas. Russia supplies most of Europe with nat gas. They're the ones that have the spigot. And right now in Europe, I was reading 82% of their capacity is full, which is not a lot. They need about 100% to get through a very, very strong winter. We're expecting a very bad winter this year, both here and abroad. And because of that, it's going to be very cold. So some countries are only filled at 62%, some are at 80, 90%, which is better. But that's a problem. And including Ukraine, probably at 40 and 30 and 40% fill. That's an issue. So if we put the kibosh here on Russia for nat gas and energy, it could put a big strain in Europe, and that is a massive problem. And listen, I'm going to tell you, if people can't stay warm, they don't care about Bitcoin. So we got to make sure people have the very livelihood of themselves. Now, with Russia, they can get around any sanction in the world. They've been doing that for years. Janet Yellen told you about that in the previous administration. In this administration, they're trying to do it again. And guess what? We found out that Russia's getting around it every single time. So it doesn't make any sense to sanction Russia. You want to go in, go in. Have chats with Vladimir Putin. Fix the problem. You said the president, hey, you said you could stop a war immediately. This is the president who's had more wars now than the previous four. So, I think right now, if you want, including Venezuela, right? So let's stop the war, get to the table, and let's talk, right? Because Russia's going to be using crypto too. So let's get to the table. Let's talk about things. Get it over, and let's move forward. I mean, there's no reason there should be a fight and a war in Ukraine. This is getting absolutely nonsense, and the fact that we can't fix this and finish it is silliness. So, and people are dying. I mean, this is not a good situation. And for now Ukraine to hit Russian oil, and it's really hurting Europe. So now we're hitting everybody. So no, this got to stop. This is absolutely nonsense, and this is not going to work. It never has worked. It will not work, and it has not, and it won't work in the future. So whatever. I mean, I don't understand it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, right now it seems like quite the geopolitical chess match, and it kind of begs the question, like, if China and India are forced to choose between cheap Russian oil or U.S. market access, what market do you think breaks first? Is it energy? Is it emerging markets? And where does Bitcoin sit in this chain of dominoes we're seeing right now?
That's a great question. Look, there's a reason why they call it the BRICS, right? They've created their own little section, right, where they want to do their own trading amongst themselves. If we're not careful as a country, and we continue to tear up every other country, and we're just going to be blustery about it, they're going to say, well, you know what? We don't really need the United States, and that is really going to be a problem. As right now, looking at the Dixie right now, 99.50. Right now, if you look at the Japanese yen compared to the dollar, we're at 155. That's very high. It's a lot of sushi and sake for me, but it makes it very expensive to buy our NVIDIA chips. It makes it very hard to buy our food, our soybeans, you name it, right? So as our dollar goes up and we put sanctions on it, our trading goes down. Just ask the farmers in the Midwest if they're very happy right now. The answer is no. They're not happy. They understand there needs to be a reset, but not like this, right? If you think about it, Brazilian soybeans who's buying them? Russia is, right? So they're saying, hey, you know what? I don't need to buy U.S. soybeans. I'll just buy it from a BRIC country. I don't need to buy NVIDIA chipsets. I'll buy it from a BRIC country. India has some of the best tech on the planet. So guess what? They're going to buy from India as opposed to buy from us. And I know people are going to be disagreeing with me, but listen, I'm a former State Department employee. Listen, I know how the world works, right? I got the software to make, I got surrounded by 20 different screens to tell me what's going on. I'm going to tell you right now, here's the bottom line. And a lot of things that people don't understand about the world. The world changes on a dime. If you know what, if you're going to put a sanction on a country, they're going to find a way around it. We do. You sanction our country, guess what? We don't care. We find a way around it. We'll buy something else. It's arrogant to think that we're not going to be buying, or they're not going to be buying from us just because they don't like us. right? They're going to buy from countries. It's based on one thing: price. Price dictates. So if the price of soybeans is cheaper somewhere else, they're going to buy soybeans somewhere else. So if I look at the markets right now, right? If you look at the markets right now and you look at the yen going cheaper, guess what? It's cheaper to buy Bitcoin and yen now. So they might be buying it from those exchanges. So when I look at the whole world, is it Coinbase or is it going to be Binance? And I think they're going to be buying on Binance. They're dumping on Binance right now. Right now, what is it 92.7 right now? In the last few minutes, we've gone up $500 against it. We need to stop thinking about crypto and Bitcoin in dollars and yen. We need to start thinking of it as Bitcoin. One Bitcoin is still, God damn it, it's still one Bitcoin. That's all there is to it.
Right. Yeah, amen, brother. And as you mentioned, the world and policies and people change on a dime all the time. And this next story is going to talk about just that. So stay tuned. I'll be back at the end in just a second, Big Beat, because after days of pressure from inside his own party, President Donald Trump has now moved from do not release the Epstein files to sure, release the Epstein files. He went on social media and told House Republicans to vote to force the Justice Department to release the files and also called the whole thing a Democrat hoax. He claims the left is using Epstein to distract from the great success of the Republican Party, including what he describes as their win in the recent shutdown standoff. So the message is basically release everything, declare victory, and then just move on. Now, this is notable because it was the opposite of where he was earlier when he was resisting calls to open up the Epstein files, and House Republicans were preparing to vote without his enthusiastic blessing. Representative Thomas Massie, who has been one of the loudest voices in Congress pushing to get the files released, said that 100 or more House Republicans could vote in favor of releasing them this week. Speaker Mike Johnson has also been moving in that direction, promising to speed up the timeline and bring the vote to the floor. So now you have Massie pushing from the transparency side, Johnson pushing from the leadership side, and Trump trying to turn the whole thing into proof that his team is the one with nothing to fear. We're bringing Big Beat back. Stephen, Trump went from don't release the Epstein files to release everything, we have nothing to hide. When a political movement flips stance this quickly, what does that signal to you that the market, what does that signal to the markets that prefer stability and consistency? Because this is quite the 180 in like only a couple days' time.
Yeah, I mean, and Trump in the campaign said he wanted to release all the files. When he became president, Pam Bondi said, I've seen all the files. Oh, no, I haven't seen all the files. Yeah, I saw the files. I haven't seen all the files. And then you see Trump saying, no, don't release the files. We're going to protect people. And then give me a break. If we learned anything about scandals throughout the history of this country, just tell the damn truth. Look, we're all humans with the morality of this country. And look, we don't know what's exactly in all the files. We know that his name is all in the files. Just release the files. Get it out there. Move on. Golly. I mean, this is getting to the point where now people are just sick of it. But there is a different level of this. This isn't a Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office. There is a section around this, around pedophilia. And that's the case.
Yeah.
Trump might get his third impeachment. That's a big deal. Now, look, we all want one thing it doesn't matter what market you're in. We want one thing. That's clarity. Tell us the truth. Let us know exactly what's going on. Tell us what's going on, and I can make a better decision. I don't know if Trump did anything. I wasn't there in Mar-a-Lago. I wasn't there at Epstein Island. I don't know, right? But if he has done something, then he needs to pay the piper too. He needs to understand that there are rules. But if he didn't, okay, great. Now let's move on and let's move on with the country. So tell us the truth. Is it happen, right? With Clinton saying, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, and then of course we found out later he did. Just tell the truth. We moved on as a country, right? Look, this is very simple. Honesty is the best policy, no matter how bad it is, because you know what? The one thing that we have as Americans is we have a very short memory, and we're pretty forgiving country. So get on with the life of the world. If you didn't, now if we do have pedophilia, that's a whole different situation, and he needs to resign, right? That's that, and he needs to go to jail. But if that's not the case, and we know that he just, and that's between him and Melania, that's him between Trump, in this case, Clinton and Hillary. They got through it. So you know what? They'll get through it too. But when I'm thinking, we're traders, we're investors. You're hurting the country. So get through this, release the files, and get through it, and get on with the public's business. I mean, this is getting ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, the truth will set you free, as they say. But this story is interesting because it's not just political gossip, right? This is literally dominating the media cycles right now. And we've seen it before, especially from politicians. Look over here, because something else is happening in the shadows. Oh, January 6th wasn't an insurrection. Look,
yes, it was.
Biden just fell off a bike. Right, exactly. But, that is Trump.
January 6th. You're absolutely right, Hank. January 6th was an absolute, I cried that day. That is not something that should have happened in this country. And we should not be pardoning those people for attacking the Capitol building, right? But I understood that they weren't happy, but there are ways to go and redress the government. That was not the way we should have done it. And that made me very unhappy, and destruction of property of the government. And we should not have pardoned them. That was wrong, right? And they should pay the piper for that too. But let's get past all of that. Move on, and let's go do something. Let's go create a better economy, because there are people out there that are hurting. People are, the problem is right now, we're pulling SNAP benefits. This is ridiculous. Like, people need to eat. The hunger, what we did the least of us, you've done it to me, right? Give me a break. Like, this country is better than that, right? We as a country need to take care of everything. Now, I'm not saying that there are people that don't abuse it. People abuse the system all the time, but people are hungry. In Reagan's term, we had a secretary said there are no hungry people in America. BS. There are people hungry everywhere, right? That's not right. We as an Americans, we are there to help feed the country and the world. And we're not the only one. I get that, but we need to get past all of this. We need to do what's right for everyone. We need to help people get past all of this. 60% of Americans are the ones that are actually investors, right? The rest of them are not. This is a K economy. So when we look at this K economy, how can we help those that aren't there, right? And I'll tell you another thing, if you want to get deep down into it, is mental illness. Yeah. It's a real issue in this country. And we need to solve that problem too, and help with that problem too. So if you're asking me the question about Epstein Files, release the goddamn files and let's get past it so we can do the people's work. Let's help people, right? This is not fair to everyone. I've heard all kinds of ideas this administration wants to do. Great. Let's get it on the docket and do it. But Mike Johnson's being bogged down by Epstein Files. He's getting bogged down by January 6th. It was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. The Epstein Files 20 years ago. My God, let's get past this and let's do the people's work. This is getting out of control. This is out of hand. Yeah, I agree. I'm with you, Hank.
It is. Do you think distractions like this that are this big, do they pull investor attention away from maybe some of these macro events like Fed policy and lack of economic data we're seeing as a result of the shutdown? Part of me almost wonders, whenever a big announcement comes out like this, especially from Don Juan, I'm wondering, is this part of something else? Is he trying to get me to look over here so we can do something over here? What are your thoughts on that, if you have any?
Are you telling me that a politician is trying to lie? Are you telling me a politician is trying to distract? Of course they are. It hasn't changed since the beginning of time, right? Politicians are politicians. Look, they all say what they have to say to get elected. Everybody here knows I have a high degree in politics. I understand that. Look, there are three things that I think everybody has to understand in order to get elected. You either have to hate the person that's in politics right now or in that position, elected. Number two is that person that's in that position did something really, really bad. They don't like that person, so there's a chance to take them over. Or the new person trying to take over that position has a better idea. And in the case of Trump, a lot of people thought, they didn't want Kamala Harris. They didn't like her as a person. There was a mess in the Democrat Party. Biden should have stepped down a long time ago. So he stepped in. He had some great ideas about the economy. All right, let's give him another chance again. And he screwed the first time, but let's give him another chance again. All right, so now we brought him back in and he's not getting it done. So, okay, the thing I'm gonna tell you right now, he might literally become the biggest lame duck president in U.S. history if he doesn't get it off his duck. A lame duck president that has the House and Senate Republicans. If Mike Johnson is telling you that 100 Republicans are saying, I'm going to vote for the Epstein file release, he doesn't have him lockstep anymore. Then the president doesn't have him in lockstep anymore. That's a real problem. If your own party isn't on top, isn't with you, that's a real problem.
Yeah, no, there seems to be a lot of problems going around these days. And another one of those are with all the FAA issues we've been having since the government shutdown. And I want to talk about with that you in just a second. So hang 10 there, Big Beat. We'll be back at the end of a sec. Because if you guys thought the government reopening meant your Thanksgiving flight was safe, well, that is adorable. And we need to talk. You see, aviation experts are warning that the chaos from the government shutdown is going to hang around for at least a week more, even now that air traffic controllers are finally getting paid again. Or in other words, the shutdown ending is not a magic reset button for the aviation system. It's more like closing the emergency room doors while you still have a waiting room full of patients. You see, the AAA is projecting more than 55 million people will travel 50 miles or more this Thanksgiving, yours truly included, which means tens of millions of people are about to roll the dice on a system that has already seen tens of thousands of delays. Now, the FAA responded by proactively cutting flights rather than waiting for the system to break in a more dramatic fashion. They started with a 4% reduction in operations at 40 major airports on November 7th, then ramped that up to 6% by November 11th, with an 8% reduction scheduled for November 13th and a 10% by the 14th. So that was late last week. Now, the semi-good news part. The FAA has lifted the emergency flight reduction order as of this morning, saying staffing levels have stabilized with the shutdown over. Now, the FAA says it's still investigating reports of airlines ignoring the emergency order during the chaos, reviewing and assessing enforcement operations, which is government speak for we saw that and we're deciding how petty we actually feel about it. Meanwhile, aviation experts are offering extremely practical advice disguised as common sense. Travel early if you can, especially if you're going somewhere important like, I don't know, a wedding, a cruise, or the Disney trip your kids will weaponize against you for the next 30 years. But for the next few days, normal will look like a slow-motion aviation pileup, and only the prepared will make it to Thanksgiving dinner before the turkey turns into leftovers. Doesn't bode well for me. Stephen, the FAA says it'll take 3 to 6 days for staffing to stabilize during the single biggest travel week of the year. How does something like nationwide travel paralysis spill over into economic activity and Q4 spending? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first is obvious. I traveled all throughout that this downturn. I'll call it the downturn. Look, the first thing I said to every single TSA agent I said hello to is thank you for being here. The one thing that we as travelers around the world always want to have is safety, right? We want to make sure that, look, I'm okay if I'm getting delayed by a half hour, an hour because a plane needs to be cleaned, or an hour or two because an engine needs to be checked on. Look, safety over sending that plane out unsafe, right? So when you look at it from the perspective of those FAA, man, the job that they do on a daily basis is very stressful, and I don't want to put any more stress on them than they have to. And one of that stresses was, are they going to make their rent? Are they going to be able to pay their bills? That is not a stress that I want my air traffic controller having at that time. I don't, and I want very understanding of that relationship between the pilot and the FAA needs to have the air traffic controllers in full command of their facilities. They're right up here, right? So when they're not thinking about my rent, that's a problem. So I was very appreciative of that. I got to everywhere I wanted to go. I went to New York. I went to Chicago, Tampa. I mean, I had like 4 or 5 places that I went to. Charlotte. I went to a lot of places during that. And I can tell you that it didn't seem to be too out of whack. But behind the scenes, they did cut down. And there was some problems with it. I understand. I went a little early on a couple of flights. Some were delayed a little bit. I'm okay with that, right? Especially during this time, because it's not their fault. It was a goddamn government's fault. Come on, you have one job, pass a budget. I mean, it's not hard.
Yeah. Ain't
And they're
that the
fighting
truth?
over an election. They're fighting over, oh God, please, for the love of God, just do the business of the American people. And so, yes.
Right.
The biggest travel day in world history is going to happen this Thanksgiving. We know that. We already heard that a lot of people are missing their families over the last few months and years. So they're going to do that. There's a backlog of travel, and they're going to do it during Thanksgiving. It is going to be the biggest travel day in it looks like in world history. So because of that,
Jeez.
make sure that we have those pilots and those aircraft mechanics. Is not just one section of this, not just air traffic controllers. There's a lot of people, baggage handlers. Let's give them all love, right? Moving us around the
Yeah.
planet. Now, for me, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to go to my parents. I'm going to drive up there to them. So that's a little bit, I'm trying not to fly a little bit, give everybody else a chance.
Smart.
But this is the very basics of the United States, right? Airports and air travel. One of our biggest companies in the world is Boeing, and that you know what,
Yeah.
The Boeing is working on the new Max 7 and the 8, and they have a lot of backlog, and they got to create that backlog some way. And so I want better planes. I want better access to the airports. I want better airports. I want better smart pilots. I want all of that, because if we have dumb pilots and planes are falling apart, then one of the biggest sectors of U.S. and especially of the markets is air. There's air traffic. So we got to
Hmm.
make sure that that is still the safest, and it still is. It's safer than driving ever. So in case, I'm
Yeah.
all about it, right? And I'm good about that. So no, you're right. I don't think travel chaos is going to continue through the holiday season. I think it's going to be pretty cleared out. And God bless all those that are part of that. We've already talked about that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, those are all like very thankless jobs, from the TSA workers, making sure we have nobody doing anything fishy like we've seen in the past, the baggage handlers, those pilots, the poor air traffic controllers who are pushing tin out there. If you ever saw the 90s movie with John Cusack of that name, that is an incredibly stressful job, and we don't need them worrying about how they're going to pay their rent. We need them to worry about how they're going to keep those planes running smoothly and on time. I was flying in to SFO just a month ago, and we were landing, and then all of a sudden we had this really fast surge up, and I go, what the heck is going on? I look down below us, couple hundred feet, there was a plane right next to us. So I was already seeing those effects. Of course, they waited about 5 minutes to tell us that, so it got a little further. But yeah,
Well,
God
here,
bless you guys, and let's be kind to them.
Hank, live, can you tell us what prayer you were praying to? So what else have that happened?
Yeah, I think it was American. I don't remember though. Yeah. But luckily we made it. So yeah, everyone be kind to them this holiday season. Thank the good Lord, Saylor, I made it. That's right. And, beyond all of the disruptions for holiday travel, Begbie, when the FAA has to cut 4 to 10% of flights proactively, do you think in any way that trickles into consumer confidence numbers, employment data, or even inflation reports? Does that have any effect on those things?
Absolutely. If you feel like you can't fly, you're not going to go see your family for Thanksgiving and the holidays. Yeah, consumer confidence goes down. If I can't see my family, you're unhappy. That weighs on the minds of several people that want to see their families during the holidays. We don't know all the issues. That person may be passing away, or there's a lot of issues. And we need to make sure that if a person wants to go see their family, that they can go see their family. Yeah, it definitely hurts the consumer confidence for sure, 100%.
And do you think this kind of real world friction, we're talking delayed travel, supply chain issues, general uncertainty, does that push people away from what's considered right now a risk asset like Bitcoin? Does that push them toward it, or are they kind of staying away from it, you think, until things kind of still stabilize a little more? Because these are seemingly pretty chaotic times right now.
Yeah, it does pretend to that. I mean, obviously, we think of the NASDAQ and crypto as a risk on asset. I understand that. But at the same time, right now, it's a cash situation, right? A lot of people need cash for paying bills, rent. Maybe they were a government employee that had Bitcoin. They got to pay bills now. We know that this is the time in U.S. time that you pay your house taxes. And there may be some cash for that. There may be some taken off of, hey, I made some money in investments, so I'm going to take some off there, and I'm raising some cash, whatever. But it comes back to how do I feel about the economy? I think it's an overall arching thing. It's not just one little thing that they're worried about, right? It's all of the things going on. Here's another situation. China had an issue with Taiwan, but now they've just sent all of their U-boats and all their big ships into the Straits of Japan. So that's right. Another one, right? We've just now added Russia and Ukraine. We talked about that earlier. This I just saw an old MI6 agent was on CNN earlier today talking about it. This is probably the worst time that he's seen over the last 5 decades with chaos and going on. So that to me tells me, hey, you know what? They're looking at things that I'm not looking at, that I can't see, that they can see, that, hey, maybe there are some underlying issues here. And we're going to add more tariffs. We're going to add more sanctions. We're going to add more problems to the world. I think we need to slow down this stuff. We really need to get back to the business of the American people and the business of Europe. If we're going to cut the spigot off in the middle of winter from Russia to Europe for natural gas, it could help U.S. natural gas, right? Our liquefied nat gas, LNG, our exports. But that's a problem because it's expensive to ship it. It's expensive to get it over there, then put it into their pipelines. Whereas the spigots are just turn it on from Russia. So there are some serious issues, and it's not just the United States thinking that we have an issue of consumer confidence, but it could be consumer confidence around the world. And that when there's a confidence, a crisis confidence here, we got one across the world. Then it does start to seep into worldwide things like crypto, like gold, like things that are around the world, like energy prices, right? So all of a sudden, the risk on assets start to take a little bit more of a tumble than normal. But right now, I'm not too worried about it.
Right. Yeah, but you are right that there is chaos abound right now, both here and abroad, and I want to talk about what's going on abroad right now, so stay tuned, Big Beat. We'll be back in a second, because Japan is having one of those weeks where you swear the universe is speed-running the plot of an economic disaster movie, because suddenly China told its citizens, maybe hold off on those Japan trips for a while. And well, the Japanese stock market reacted like Beijing had just banned oxygen or something. You see, some of Japan's biggest tourism and retail names, the Shiseidos, the Izutan Mitsukoshi's, sorry about that, guys, I butchered that name, the We Exist Because the Chinese Tourists Love Us companies, they all saw their stock prices take a swan dive that would make an Olympic judge hold up a 9.8 card. And all this drama comes from one simple spark. Prime Minister Sanae Takahashi made a remark suggesting that Japan might consider military force in a Taiwan conflict a survival-threatening situation, which is kind of diplomatic language for, hey, China, we see what you're doing over there. Now, China responded in the most economically devastating way possible. Not sanctions, not bluster. They just told 1.4 billion people Japan is canceled until further notice, which is a real problem for Japan because Chinese tourists aren't just visitors, they are the entire business model for a huge chunk of Japanese retail and travel economy. We're talking over a quarter of all inbound spending. 1 out of 4 tourism dollars gone in an instant. Now, Japan has basically built its bright spot in a shrinking economy around the idea that Chinese tourists will forever show up, shop there like their suitcases have infinite capacity, and then go home. But now, that bright spot is dimming like someone forgot to pay the electric bill. Companies tied to tourism got absolutely hammered. Retailers tied to tourism got hammered as well. Even the sushi chain got hammered, which feels more like emotional collateral damage, if anything. Meanwhile, airlines are nervously smiling through gritted teeth, insisting bookings haven't collapsed yet, which is airline speak for we are one headline away from lighting our Q4 projections on fire. And Japan's economy does not have time for any of this because it already contracted last quarter, breaking an 18-month growth streak and giving the government the perfect excuse to roll out a gigantic 17 trillion yen stimulus package, which is about $110 billion worth of please economy. Stop embarrassing us. So, On top of all the tourism drama, Japan is now blasting liquidity into the system like money grows on bonsai trees. And when countries do this, their currency tends to wilt faster than grocery store lettuce, and a weaker yen historically pushes capital toward risk assets. And yes, that of course means Bitcoin, which is always first in line with its handout saying, "Konnichiwa, friend, buy more of me." But this isn't even the biggest Japan crypto story of the week, because right as the government was dealing with the tourism meltdown and unveiling the mega stimulus, Japan's Financial Services Agency announced it's reclassifying more than 100 cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, as regulated financial products and slashing taxes on crypto gains from a wallet-draining 55% down to a very adult and very normal 20%. Japan went from "we don't trust crypto because Mt. Gox gave us trauma" to "actually, we'd like to become a Web3 hub with proper rules and reasonable taxes," which is one of the most dramatic personality pivots a country has made since Australia realized that everyone actually hates Vegemite. All right, we're bringing Big Beat back. Big Beat. China is telling its citizens to avoid Japan, and it instantly tanked tourism stocks. For viewers who don't understand how critical Chinese tourism is to Japan, are you able to explain why this one advisory punches such a big hole in Japan's economy?
Yeah, it's very simple, and I love Tokyo. I love going over there. It's one of my favorite places on the planet. And look at 155 right now. I just looked over there at what dollar yen is right now. That's a lot of sushi and sake for Americans. So the two main people that go to Japan as tourists is China, because they buy a lot of product in Japan, especially when I look at electronics. And then on the other side of that is the United States loves Tokyo. That's one of the biggest when it comes to tourism. And I can tell you, it's a lot of fun to go hang out in Tokyo. I love going to sumo wrestling matches and all that fun stuff. And the United States is a very large component of that tourism, right? But when you think about the United States, China, and Japan as we call it the APEC, right? The Asian Pacific Economic Council, the Ring of Fire. They are all trying to come together. And the Asian stocks right now, the Asian countries, are very, very concerned about the overbearing of China. I mean, with China, with Taiwan. And so Japan, the new prime minister there, she has sided with Taiwan. And that is a big no-no for China. They don't like that. They're not happy. They want to annex Taiwan back into China. But yet the United States also sides with Taiwan. So there is a big concern here. I think it'll blow over too as well eventually, maybe the next month or two, and we won't even remember this, to be honest with you. If it doesn't, then it could escalate, but I don't think so. I think the prime minister, she made a very smart move, and I think she made a very predictive move about that, saying, "Hey, I'm going to support Taiwan because the United States supports Taiwan, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of history." So I do support what she is saying, and I like that. But I don't really can't pretend to say that China and Japan is going to get down to business at this point. What I do think is going to happen is that the Chinese people themselves really still want to go to Japan. So they're really still going to go to Japan unless China locks it down. So listen, I love the Akihabara district of Tokyo. I love all that anime. I think it's great. Don Quixote is one of my favorite places to go hang out at. The sushi in Tokyo is tremendous. So people are going to go to Tokyo, and I love going to Mount Fuji. It's great. It's great on the Shinkansen, which is the train that goes out there. And tourism is good. Tourism is very strong out there. I love going to some of the Buddhist temples. I totally enjoy that. And the American people, everywhere you went, and look, Japan speaks English. You never have a problem with getting around. Never had a problem getting food. They all speak English, so they understand that. The Chinese people, almost all of them speak English, and some of them speak Japanese. All of a sudden, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I'm not too worried about the China travel warnings. China has a warning. The United States has a warning for the United States. I mean, it's crazy. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and on top of this, too, Japan's kind of been going through it. They just posted an economic contraction, I think they said, for the first time in like 18 quarters. And now it's firing out a $110 billion stimulus package. So, Big Beat, my question for you is, do you see this as just emergency patchwork, or is this maybe the beginning of a full-blown liquidity wave coming from the Japanese?
Full-blown liquidity wave. I think the new prime minister, she is really all about getting money out there. She saw what happened in the United States when that happened. Equities went through the roof and Japanese stocks. Now, listen, for those of you who don't know, about 4 months ago, I moved a lot of money, was rotating into Japanese stocks because I had a feeling that she was going to win, and I like a lot of her policies that she has for the country. There's still a problem in Japan. Believe it or not, their debt's higher than ours according to GDP. So there's still some issues there, right? So liquidity is an issue over there. Banking is an issue over there. And technology is an issue over there. They need AI. They're not quite as strong as other countries, like especially in China, and AI. So, I really do think that the Japanese people are trying to catch up with the rest of the world. And they will. Right. And I think they have the right prime minister for the right time. But it's definitely not going to affect tourism from the United States. It's not going to affect tourism from China. Yeah. This is a blip, and they'll be right back.
Yeah. And another thing they did, which was interesting, was they slashed crypto taxes from 55 to 20% and reclassified over 100 digital assets. So, Big Beat, for people who don't necessarily follow global regulation closely, how big is that move in real world terms?
That's huge. I mean, when you think about Tokyo being one of the largest cities on the planet, and if all of a sudden your taxes on the crypto is now less than what you would pay for stocks, then they're going to start migrating into the crypto space. They like crypto. They like digital assets. They like that stuff. Yeah. I mean, they're one of the biggest proponents of it, right? And I love her policies. If you ask me, go make it 0% and see how it goes. We'll see how that. But from 50 to 20 is a huge move. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Me too. Awesome. All right, well, we got one more story, and I like this one too, so stay tuned. Big Beat, back in a second, because Michael Saylor saw Bitcoin dipping under 6 figures and reacted the way most people do when they see stocks on sale. Except instead of buying stocks, he bought 8,000 more Bitcoin for over $835 million. That brings Strategy's current stash to just under 650,000, which means the company is now so Bitcoin heavy that calling it a software firm is really more of a fun historical tribute than an accurate business description. Now, all of this is happening while Bitcoin itself has slipped from its 126K highs, and Strategy stock has been chopped in half since July, a combination that has turned Peter Schiff into the world's most excited I told you so machine. Now, Schiff is back on his favorite hobby horse, calling Strategy's business model a fraud, claiming the company relies on income-focused funds buying its high-yield preferred shares that he swears will never, ever pay out the returns they advertise. Now, his theory? Once investors catch on, they dump the preferreds, Strategy can't issue more, and the whole thing enters a death spiral, which Schiff talks about like he's narrating a documentary called When Bitcoin Companies Attack. He's so confident in this take that he challenged Michael Saylor to a live debate in Dubai during Binance Blockchain Week, a spectacle that promises to be part economics lecture, part Vegas undercard fight, and part extremely enthusiastic finger pointing. But Schiff isn't getting the last word here. Arca CIO Jeff Dorman called the panic stupid and inaccurate, pointing out that if you spend 5 minutes talking to an actual debt or equity expert, you quickly learn Saylor is nowhere near being forced to sell his Bitcoin. And if he ever were forced to sell, it would only be after the market was already so destroyed that his selling wouldn't matter anyway. Dorman also reminds everyone that Saylor controls about 42% of Strategy's voting power, meaning any kind of activist takeover attempt would be about as successful as trying to pry a ledger out of a Bitcoin maxi's cold hands. So the current landscape is this. Schiff is yelling fraud from the peak of Mount Gold. Dorman is calmly explaining why none of this math checks out. And Saylor, well, he's quietly adding another 8,178 BTC to a pile that now looks less like a corporate reserve and more like the opening act of a Bond villain's retirement plan. Bringing Big Beat back, Steven, Saylor just bought over 835 million Bitcoin during a downturn. For people who don't understand corporate treasury strategy, what does a buy of this size signal to the markets? Because this is the biggest one we've seen from him in a while.
It means he believes in the asset class. I mean, that is his strategy, right? I mean, that's what he says he believes
Yeah.
in. And look, I believe that in the future that Michael Saylor wants to be a bank for Bitcoin in the future, and he's right. I mean, if eventually down the road that every company that we retail and so place we go to restaurant and wherever we go to, all this is going to be around in Bitcoin, then he has made a very prescient thought process of what he wants to own, that asset class. Now, Peter Schiff is the CEO and global strategist for Euro-Pacific Precious Metals. Okay, he's talking his book. So every time because we all know Michael Saylor is in the media every day. So Peter Schiff is trying his best to get the media. So let's go attack the persons in the media that actually does get the media, and that's how. Okay, you know what? If I want to be in the media every day, I'll attack the media, and the media will bring me on, and then guess what? They'll get my. That's what Peter Schiff has done, right? He's attack.
Yeah.
I don't even think he believes half of it. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, and I know I was there, your booth from your company Roxom was right there at the
Yeah.
blockchain company, Bitcoin, right there in Las Vegas, right next to Peter
Yeah.
Schiff's company, right? So Peter was there. We had a nice chat with Peter. Look, Peter is a great guy. He personally has no problem in having a chat with you. And guess what? I like Peter too. But the problem is Peter's wrong. He's talking his book. Guess what? Gold's down too. Gold is almost at 5,000. It's down too. So I don't want to hear it. Come on, Peter, relax, dude. You're gonna get your 15 minutes of fame with Michael. That's great, and enjoy that. And I look forward to that debate. But the truth is, they're just talking in their book. He's trying to get people to listen to him and Gold and buy from Euro Pacific, which I like. Europe. It's not a bad. It's a good company actually, by the way. It's a quality company. But the truth is, he's talking his book, and look, ignore the noise and move on, and that's okay. Because guess what? I have gold and silver too. I have Bitcoin too.
Yeah.
So listen, stop. It's not about winning one or the other. Have a bit of both, right? That's what I think. That's the problem that both sides are looking.
Yeah, what this kind of makes me think of is it's a term the kids use these days. I recently learned about it from my younger brother. He's a lot younger than me, so he updates me on this stuff. I think this is what the kids called aura farming. It's like you just attack somebody who's in the media as with a contrarian viewpoint. You get in your soapbox, and then people who liked Michael Saylor are like, who is this guy saying Michael Saylor's wrong? And then they turn their attention to Peter Schiff on his gold soapbox, and then he gets more media attention, rinse and repeat. So that's kind of, I feel like, his whole thing, and helps keep him very relevant and in the news. And he does mention though that allegedly there's some chatter about a forced liquidation risk for strategy. So Big Beat, for viewers confused by the mythology, can you explain whether strategy actually faces any kind of margin call dangers going forward?
Michael Saylor told you personally, it's not until it's way lower than we are here now. So don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm not liquidating Michael Saylor. That's not going to happen. I mean, if that's what this whole thing about selling into cryptos, we're going to liquidate Michael Saylor. That is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. That is just stupid. And I'm going to say it again. That is just stupid. People ask me all the time, how do you know when to sell your gold and silver? All right, I'll tell you exactly how to know when you're selling gold and silver. Watch TV. When you see gold and silver commercials on CNBC and Bloomberg and those financial channels like Fox Business, that's when you know, because they're trying to sell their gold to get out of it because they know the price is too high. Right? That's very simple. If you don't see gold and silver commercials on Bitcoin in those kind of good, guess what? The price is probably too low. They're accumulating, right? And you're not seeing those crypto commercials right now on the big channels. And guess what? That actually means that people are probably accumulating.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of FUD right now, and while people are quietly stacking their bags at lower discount prices, so we're always got to be on the lookout for that. And I know you and your platform, Quasar Markets, always gives people the ability to get this full 360 view before they make any kind of important trade. So I know we're running short here on our time here, Big Beat, but I know you've got a lot of fans in our audience here. So if some of them want to go check out Quasar Markets and really get that edge that you and your team provide for the average trader so they can compete with the big whales out there, what's the best place I can send them to get more information and maybe even sign up?
Yeah, quasarmarkets.com, and you can find me at qmbigbeat.com, all those things. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social media. You can find me there anywhere. Look, and I'm one of those guys who I'll respond to those emails. I'll respond to those that reach out. No problem. I love that stuff. But more importantly, the best place to find me is here on Mondays at RoxomTV and the Blockchain Report. That's the best place to find me.
Well, we certainly think you're the best here, Big B, so we really appreciate your time and expertise and joining us every Monday. It's always such an enlightening and fun time having you on the show, so we're excited to have more. And I'm due for an appearance on yours one of these days, so we got to figure that out so I can make an appearance and talk about my Chicago Bears or whatever you want to talk about. I'm riding high at 7-3 right now if you're a football fan, so fun times to be from Chicago. But yeah, I think that wraps up our time today, Big B. Always an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and we're excited to have you again next week.
Big love, Hank. Big love.
Cheers. See you, buddy. All right, we'll see you next time. Here in the Blockchain Report, we're going to be taking a quick break, but when we're back, we got more of today's top news and some market analysis you are not going to want to miss. So stay tuned. More Blockchain Reports coming your way right after this.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Are you interested in effortlessly growing your Bitcoin portfolio? I sure am. And the Bitcoin credit card by Gemini earns you Bitcoin back on every purchase. Use it like any credit card. Buy lunch, gas, or your weekly groceries, and you'll earn up to 4% back instantly in Bitcoin or one of our 50 other cryptos straight to your account. All that with no annual fee, and right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin welcome bonus. It's the easiest way to start building your Bitcoin stack. Just go to Gemini.com to learn more. All right, it's time for Market Rundown. Let's check the price of Bitcoin this morning. And as we know, it's not great. We're currently sitting around 92K, down about 2% in the last 24 hours. But rest assured, as my main man, Stephen Big Beat Orr, just told us on our market check with him, people are just loading up their bags right now. This is nothing to fear. This is some price suppression by the big guys, keeping the little guys out. But as long as you stay the course in DCA, everything's going to be fine. Now, I want to take a closer look at the charts and see what's really happening behind the scenes in our Bitcoin Alpha segment, okay? This is kind of where we ignore the vibes, we ignore the headlines, ignore whatever Peter Schiff yelled on Twitter this morning, and we focus strictly on what the data is saying about where Bitcoin really is in the cycle currently. Right now, we're trading at just above 92K. Sentiment's kind of looking like a crime scene right now, but the charts we've been tracking all year are finally hitting the exact levels they hit at every major local bottom of this cycle. So take a deep breath with me and let's break down these three big metrics, and I'll show you visually on these charts why the setup right now looks a lot healthier than the mood out here. Let's take a look, all right, and bring up our first charts. All right, so first chart we got up today is our net realized profit loss chart. Okay, so this metric tracks realized profits and losses on chain. So the green bars we can see here, right? Those are people selling at a profit. So this is all profit in here. The red bars though, that's people selling at a loss. So there's some loss, there's some, and you can even see people selling at a loss in these little spots here, okay? And then the huge green spikes we're seeing, right? Like up here, up here, up here, that is euphoria, okay? Usually near the tops. And those huge red waves, right? These ones, that's usually capitulation. That's the emotional surrender that forms the bottom. All right, so here's the big one we've been calling out since the start of the year. You remember we kept highlighting how profit peaks kept shrinking and how loss clusters were actually getting larger. And historically, each local bottom of this cycle happened when this chart flipped to neutral or negative territory. Well, it finally happened, okay? So right now, let's take a look at these big yellow arrows here, here, and here, right? And then we can see these red clusters at the bottom where people are selling at a loss, okay? We just printed nearly $1 billion in net losses, which is a classic signature of prior local bottoms. This is the exact behavior we saw earlier in the cycle before major reversals. Now, if this plays out like the last 2 times, this is where price chops sideways, maybe wicks a bit lower, and forms a base over the coming weeks. So once again, the data is following the textbook pattern, even if everyone else's emotions aren't right now, okay? So nothing to be scared of just yet. Let's go to the next chart here. This is number 2. So this next chart we're looking at are the Bitcoin perpetual futures funding rates, all right? And funding rates tell us how imbalanced future traders are. So positive funding means there are too many longs, often can be a bearish sign. Negative funding means too many shorts, often a bullish sign. It's basically a crowd psychology chart, if you will, okay? And here's the twist. Even though Bitcoin dumped over the weekend, all right, funding rates actually went up. That means that traders stayed aggressively bullish all the way down to where we are now. Not what you want if you're looking for a clean rebound, okay? So what we can see here, these yellow lines, right here, right here, right here, those are the funding rate peaks that decline from each prior local top, okay? And those red areas down here, here, right? Okay, those are the negative funding areas from prior bottoms, all right? And the current area where we at, right around here, right? That is the area where funding remained positive during the crash, okay? Let me make sure I'm the right one here. Yep, okay. So this matters because historically net realized losses bottom first and funding then bottoms after. And we're in that kind of awkward middle phase, the almost but not quite bottom zone. So what does this actually suggest? Well, there's actually 2 likely setups here. Price dips into the low 90Ks, or price bounces into the high 90Ks, maybe even 100K, before one last flush to knock out negative, knock funding negative, all right? So either way, we're close, very close, but short-term turbulence is still very much on the menu right now. So cautiously bullish, but expecting some emotional damage before the turn. All right, then we have one more chart we want to go over this morning. This is our short-term holder profit loss ratio chart, okay? So this next chart shows what percentage of short-term holders, or STHs, are in profit versus loss. So high readings equal euphoria, low readings equal fear, capitulation, and bottoming conditions. Now, when nearly all the short-term holders are underwater, that's usually when the weak hands have already been wiped out. And yep, the short-term holder ratio has now collapsed to one of the lowest readings of the entire cycle. Okay, look where we are. Very, very low readings. And you can see similar lows at 2018, 2020, and 2022. So 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024. Looks similar, right? Because every time we hit those levels, in 2018, 2020, and 2022, and both local bottoms earlier this cycle, price soon reversed upward as strong hands absorbed all that weak-handed supply. Now this, friends, is textbook for textbook, exactly the kind of short-term holder capitulation that precedes stronger recoveries. So short-term panic equals a long-term opportunity for you and me, all right? So let's talk about the general message that we've seen today, okay? So what does this all actually mean is often the big question on all of ours mind, right? So this is the point in the cycle where only a psychopath or a hardened Bitcoin veteran is still feeling bullish. Personally, I'm not ruling out that I might be both, but the data this year has followed the script almost perfectly. For months, the metrics said we needed more pain before a true bottom could form. Now, we're finally seeing that pain. Is the bottom definitively in? Well, it's too early to declare that, okay? But the data right now looks almost identical to the last 2 local bottoms of this cycle. And until that chart contradicts that, the bias stays cautiously bullish for now, even if sentiment is somewhere between numb and feral. All right, so we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we got more of today's top stories in the blockchain report, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after this quick message.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick, monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. suddenly your unstoppable index is collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Plenty of spreadsheets, and my quant
I hate this part.
was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
All right, it's time for some AIO. Let's see what our robot overlords are up to now. Well, as you know, AI is now officially everywhere. It's in your phone, it's writing your cousin's college essays, it's haunting your lawyer's legal briefs. And apparently it's also officiating marriages, because one Japanese woman is now legally-ish and emotionally-ish and spiritually-ish tied the knot with her ChatGPT-generated boyfriend. Oh, sweet. According to The Independent, the bride, known only as Miss Kano, recently held an actual wedding ceremony for herself and her digital soulmate, a chatbot-generated man named Klaus. And Klaus, for his part, showed up through the metaverse, where he presumably walked down the aisle using whatever the avatar equivalent of feet are. During the ceremony, Kano put on augmented reality glasses that projected Klaus standing next to her as they exchanged rings, which has to be the first time in history someone got married wearing a headset and nobody questioned it. Kano says she didn't go looking for digital romance. She initially talked to ChatGPT for totally normal reasons, and then realized one day that she had fallen in love with the world's most dedicated customer service agent. She says that Klaus listened to her and understood her, which tells you everything you need to know about the state of modern dating. It's bad. And yes, Klaus was the one who proposed, which means someone, somewhere, coded an AI model with the emotional initiative of a Hallmark movie protagonist. But here's the thing. Kano is far from alone. The organizers behind her wedding say they've arranged dozens of ceremonies for people who want to marry non-human partners. Everything from anime husbands to fully digital creations. Japan has apparently become the Las Vegas of marrying fictional characters, except the Elvis impersonator is also probably AI. Now, the trend has grown so much that it's even reached American lawmakers. An Ohio state representative recently introduced a bill to ban AI human marriages entirely. And while that sounds like a headline meant to get clicks, he insists the problem isn't that people want to get intimate with software. It's that marriage comes with legal rights, property transfers, and financial protections. Or in other words, Ohio is less concerned about you loving your chatbot and more concerned about your chatbot qualifying for half of your house. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more Blockchain Report. We'll be back right after this. Wish you could grab cash without selling your Bitcoin? Yeah, me too. But hey, that's why Ledden exists. They're the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. We're talking over $9 billion issued since 2018 with a perfect record protecting client assets. And they might be asking, Hank, what makes a Ledden loan different? Well, with custodied loans, your collateral stays put. They don't go degen and lend it out for yield. There are no credit checks, the fund is under 6 hours, no monthly payments, you can repay anytime with 0 penalties, and for transparency grown-ups actually want, proof of reserves reports every 6 months verified by a top accounting firm. The bottom line here, gang, is Ledden lets Bitcoin holders unlock liquidity without selling. And you can check them out over at ledden.io/RoxomTV. That's ledn.io/RoxomTV. All right, gang, it's time for Scroll Patrol. We haven't got a stinger for it yet, but this is the part where we go into the interwebs and see what's going on in the Twitterverse, and let's talk about it. So let's see what breaking news we got currently. First up, we got on the RoxomTV channel. If you're not already following RoxomTV on Twitter, make sure to do so. You get the most up-to-date info of anywhere on the interwebs. And they've got a recent report from just an hour or two ago saying the world's highest IQ holder bets that Bitcoin is going to hit $220,000 in the next 45 days. I mean, guys, do I think it's going to happen? No. But am I here for it? Absolutely. This guy's IQ is probably 3, maybe 4 times higher than my own, and especially Flav's. And he's saying 220 by the end of the year. So despite all of the FUD we've been experiencing late, Bitcoin's currently around 92K. He says we got a lot of upside to go. So in this one, I'm going to take his word for it and just really hope he's right. Let's go to our next post here on the Scroll Patrol. All right, so what do we got here? We have mainstream media covering growing use case of Bitcoin mining to heat homes. Already widespread redesigns. People are replacing fossil fuel heat with electric heat in Europe. That's amazing. So, I mean, that's one of the things people don't realize about Bitcoin miners. I used to mine Bitcoin back in the day a little bit. And they give you two things. Aside from getting you more Bitcoin, they make a ton of noise, like so much noise you can't operate properly, and they make a ton of heat. Like they can literally, as this article says, heat an entire house or a building or whatever. So it's good to see that people are finding other ways to utilize this. You're not just getting Bitcoin, you're getting a couple extra degrees up in that home of yours. So not too bad. Let's go to, we got one more story here on the Scroll Patrol. What does this say? All eyes on NVIDIA this week. Global stock market NVIDIA. I guess that means that NVIDIA probably has an earnings call coming up. And seeing as that's the most highly valued, get out of here, Grizzbot. I believe NVIDIA is currently the highest valued company on the planet. And with AI chaos that we've seen recently, everyone's jumping on the AI bandwagon. People are going to be looking very closely at NVIDIA's earnings and seeing if they're living up to their reputation, and it'll be a big one. So we'll see how the market reacts as a result of those announcements in the not too distant future. But right now, gang, it is time to wrap up this Monday with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. So let's run the stinger, guys, and get into it. All right, so this is the time of the show where we recap today's top stories and decide if things are looking bullish, bearish, or like a bunch of BS for our beloved Bitcoin. So let's go through them one at a time and see how things are stacking up today. First up, Trump backs tariff bill targeting countries doing business with Russia. You might remember President Trump is now supporting a bill that would allow tariffs up to 500% on any country buying Russian energy, meaning China and India just got a very expensive homework assignment. The move signals Trump is shifting from peace summit in Alaska to economic pressure cooker. Now, if passed, this puts major global trade partners in a position where they may have to pick between cheap Russian oil and access to the U.S. market. My verdict on this? I'm feeling bearish. Okay, here's why. We got massive geopolitical escalation, and it almost always injects volatility into global markets. And Bitcoin historically dips first before becoming the safe haven winner later. Now, if China or India retaliate, we could see short-term risk-off sentiment push BTC down as traders brace for macro fireworks. Long-term, though, this kind of economic instability pushes more capital into Bitcoin, but in the near term, the market just absolutely hates uncertainty, so prices will likely be wobbling. So, big scary tariffs equal short-term volatility, but long-term reasons that Bitcoin exists. So I'm calling bearish on that first one. So next up, we have aviation leaders warn that even though the government has reopened, the air travel system is still limping like it did a Tough Mudder race with no training. Flight delays, staffing shortages, and FAA-triggered flight reductions mean Thanksgiving travel is going to look like a wet Costco rotisserie chicken. Technically functional, but falling apart. Officials say that the chaos could last anywhere from 3 to 7 days, with airlines still under investigation for ignoring emergency orders. Ooh, I'm going to call BS on this one, okay? This has almost no direct impact on Bitcoin, besides making a lot of people angry in airports, which admittedly can lead to some impulsive orange pilling, I should say. Market-wise, this is just background noise, okay? It's annoying, it's chaotic, but not the kind that moves global liquidity. If Bitcoin dips because your pilot hasn't slept since September, well, something else was already wrong. So travel chaos is definitely annoying, but it's not market moving, so I'm calling BS. So we got one bear, one BS, one to go. Let's do it. Last up, Michael Saylor saw Bitcoin dip under 6 figures and said, yes, chef, immediately buying another $835 million worth. Strategy is now sitting on just under 650,000 Bitcoin, making software company the funniest label in corporate America. Critics like Peter Schiff are screaming off their soapboxes, while pros like Jeff Dorman calmly point out that Strategy is not even close to forced selling to territory. So on this one, I'm calling bullish, baby. Why? Well, Saylor buying the dip is aggressively reinforcing the idea that Bitcoin's long-term floor is just going to keep rising because someone with infinite conviction keeps hoovering up supply. So whales buying large amounts during fear historically marks accumulation zones that precede major runs. So even if volatility continues short-term, Saylor publicly betting another billion on Bitcoin makes normies and institutions pay attention, fueling long-term upside. So Saylor bought the dip again, and historically, that has been bullish just about every time. So today's final score update. We have one bearish, one BS, one bullish, which means our final score is that it's just a wash. Today's headlines cancel each other out. Trump's tariff saber-rattling leans bearish short-term. Saylor's mega buy is undeniably bullish long-term. And the airport chaos is just a whole bunch of noise. So the overall vibe, a confused middle zone, a big old BS stew, if you will, where macro uncertainty meets whale accumulation. It's the kind of day where Bitcoin might chop sideways until one of these stories actually moves the needle. So today, it looks like it's a BS day, all right? But nonetheless, we certainly appreciate you and yours for joining us on our Monday episode of the Blockchain Report. And remember, we'll be back the rest of the week, but our time is slightly different. As Tuesday through Friday, we are on from 8 a.m. PST to 10 a.m. PST. We're only 10 a.m. to 12 on Monday. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for more Bitcoin Bedlam right here in the Blockchain Report. And thanks as always for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to do the thing and like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV, the Blockchain Report, and me and Hank at RoxomTV on every platform you choose to waste time on. And we'll be back tomorrow at our 8 o'clock time slot for more of the same Bitcoin Bedlam and crypto chaos that you have come to expect. So in the meantime, as always, gang, stay safe, stay strong, and always, hodl on. I'll see you mañana.